So this is Wolf. Wolf was a working title, and then firmware 1.10 made it so I couldn't rename it without making it very shouty. So I decided to keep it Wolf. What Wolf is a another one of my patches that is based on the idea of a continuously recording looper as the foundation for a delay. A little bit like recursion index. It's different in a couple of important ways that I'm going to walk through. So Wolf, as you see here, has a little light, and what's happening is that there is a sequence that is playing on each step, and you can determine the length of the sequence from 1 to 4 steps. So you could set it on 1 step and just use it to create sort of a pitch shift delay or a reverse delay. You could set it on all 4 steps, and right now I have it set so there's no change on the first step. It pitches up a fifth on the second step. It pitches up an octave on the third step, and it goes back to a fifth up on the fourth step. And the middle 2 steps are reversed. So they play back in reverse. And so I think it's pretty easy to dial in one of these sequences this way and to see, with the indicator light exactly what's going on with it. So the signal passes through the loopers. Before it gets there, you have a couple of options for making it cruddier sounding, because I like that a lot, and it's a relatively cheap CPU edition. So there's an aliaser. And now it's gonna be doing stuff for a while. Okay. There's an aliaser, there's a bit crusher. As this goes up, it also increases. It also increases volume. You can compensate for that somewhat with the low pass filter, which will cut off some of the bit crusher's volume. Okay, we get it. You're a bit crusher. So there's a low pass filter. The low pass filter is located both at the beginning of the signal and then in the feedback loops. So it helps the feedbacks have a more analog feel when you set them to loop. It causes degradation over time. It also helps with some of the pitchiness of the sped up loopers, which I think can get kind of chirpy. So those are all sort of audio shapers that you can use on the introduction of audio into the patch. And then there are a couple of things that you can do with the loops themselves. So there's a glide control, which allows you to set the glide between individual steps. And I will point out that the greatest instability this patch has is right about here on the glide control. If there's no glide at all, it seems to work pretty well. The loopers seem to respond pretty well. And if the glide goes up higher than about somewhere around 0.35, they also work better. But there's a tricky spot in there that I don't quite understand why the looper gets very upset. So anyhow, you can turn up the glide, which is, a lot of the ideas in this I stole from the Therme. And this began as a patch to try to create a Therme for ZOIA. I'm using loopers, not delay lines. There's a number of other differences, but there is some similarity in the DNA. So I set the glide now pretty high. So it doesn't have to be that high. I'm going to cut this down to 2 steps just to make some demonstration stuff a little easier. For instance, I really like the sound of it gliding to a lower pitch. You know, and you can get all sorts of different effects from that. Broken, wobbly record things. I set up the patch the other day so it sounded kind of like I was being accompanied by a Hawaiian slide guitar. So there are a bunch of different ways you can use the glide, or you can turn it off, which works just fine. Turn this back up to so right now the 2 steps are one is the normal pitch and going through forward, and the other is the reverse, pitched up an octave. So there's a mod, and the mod is sort of based on a wow and flutter sort of thing. It's a randomized sine wave. So that's at sort of a high rate. You get more of a flutter effect. And as you turn the rate down, you get a sort of a wobbly modulation sound. A little bit of depth goes a long way. I threw in a lot of depth because, you know, every now and then I just like making and real wobbly sounds. And combined with the glide, obviously, you can create some really off-kilter stuff. But a little bit of mod depth definitely goes a long way. So that's sort of the looper side. And then there are a couple of feedback paths. There's a mix control up here, sets your mix. There's a delay hold. I'll come back to that. So there's a delay line feedback path. And if you see these 2 blinking lights at the bottom, the delay is split into left and right sides, and they have individual clock dividers here, and they feed back into one another. So you can set different divisions and create, you know, really sort of enveloping, I think, and evolving delay sounds as the taps go from left to right to center when they both tap at the same time. And so, you know, it's a way to really fill out the stereo space. Let me see if so I'm trying to show off a ping pong sort of delay effect using a monophonic phone mic. So this is real smart of me, but the delays are going back and forth through the stereo field. You can set them obviously to have the same division if you don't like that. And you can not use this control at all. If you set the delay feedback to nothing, no audio enters the feedback net. So one thing, I ran out of storage on my phone as I was recording the last video, so I'm just going to go over the last few bits very quickly. This is tap tempo, the left stomp switch. There's also MIDI if you want to use that. This middle stomp switch will set the delay line feedback to maximum. Because of the filtering in the feedback path, they'll eventually decay rather than loop endlessly unless you set the filter to, be more open. That will affect the decay amount. When you're adjusting the filter, you might hear some clicking. I used a multi-filter because I think it works a lot better in feedback paths. But with the CPU headroom that is available, that may cause it to momentarily clip. It won't clip while you're playing, only while you're adjusting the filter. It's not a control I would adjust on the fly. I'd set a filter level that I liked and I'd keep it there. So the left stomp switch or the middle stomp switch will loop the delay line, or at least increase its feedback path to amount to maximum. The right stomp switch will increase the feedback amount of the looper feedback path to maximum, which it really depends on how you've set up the sequence. If it's all ascending notes, it quickly devolves into sort of clicks and noise. So, it works better if there's some sort of pitching down also involved, just to keep things from, devolving so quickly into something that really isn't very musical. So that's Wolf. It does a lot of stuff. I really like it. I like all of my patches, but I like this one. I think it's pretty interesting and diverse, and I really like the glide control for creating different textures. So try it out, see what you think. Thank you.